Hey folks, Nathan here from Star Wars Beyond the Films at StarWarsReport.com and the Star Wars Timeline Gold at StarWarsFanWorks.com, bringing you a look at two more products from Fantasy Flight Games and their Star Wars RPG line. This time, we take a look at the Age of Rebellion beta. We'll look at that second, but first, Star Wars Edge of the Empire Beyond the Rim. Now, this is the first adventure module for this RPG. We've had a source book, we've had like little adventures in the backs of source books included with the Game Master Kit and that sort of thing. This one is a full-blown, almost 100-page adventure specifically, for use with Edge of the Empire. Bear in mind, this is something, though, that does not stand alone like that beginner game does. You must have the original game to be able to play. You need the dice, you need the rules, and that sort of thing. This assumes you are familiar with those. It's a pretty nice book. Again, I said about 100 pages. It is hardback, which is kind of cool. The general gist of the storyline they lay out here at the beginning. Essentially what happens is you have an old separatist ship during the Clone Wars called the Sa-na-le-or, which escaped from the Republic with a bunch of scientists aboard. And eventually, it crashed for various reasons on a planet named Cholgana, and you and your team are being hired to hunt down the remains of that ship to find any survivors who might have been aboard and to find any technology that might have been aboard. As you can see, all full color, very nicely worked out. Turns out to be a pretty interesting tale, I gotta be honest with you. I mean, it's one of those few times that I've seen one of these stories that is an RPG adventure and actually gotten into the story just flipping through and seeing how it would go if I were to run such a thing. As to the parts, they do a good job of breaking this down on the table of contents. You have the tale of the Sa-na-le-or. Welcome to the Jumble. Yes. Welcome to the Jungle. Jumble would be the Clone Wars continuity. Welcome to the Jungle and Toxic Motherlode. Basically, as you go from the Wheel to Cholgana and eventually to Raxus Prime. Kind of a nice setup here, and the entire book is pretty much taken up with the adventure. There's all kinds of great background details on ships and adversaries and stuff like that, but it never breaks stride in giving you what you need for the adventure. So this entire thing is chock full, is the biggest adventure for Edge of the Empire yet. They also note here on the back, among other things, that what you get are new adversaries, new vehicles, Imperial Scout Troopers, the Skywatcher-class scout ship Amphibious Revos, the fearsome Nexu creature, and it does include little miniature gazetteers for the three primary locations in the story. The Wheel, where you start, Cholgana, where the Sa-na-le-or has crashed, and Raxus Prime, which is essentially the salvaging base of the people that you're working with or working for throughout the story. Nice product, runs about $30 if you're to buy it full retail. I actually think that if you're going to use this for multiple play sessions, and you really could, there's a lot of stuff here, I think that's probably a nice basic asking price. Although, you go through somewhere like MiniatureMarket.com's Cool Stuff Inc. or elsewhere, you can probably get it for more like $20, but of course you'll have to pay shipping on top of that for most places. The other thing we want to take a look at here is the Age of Rebellion beta. Now, you may recall that there were going to be 3 different lines of the RPG from Fantasy Flight Games. Edge of the Empire was the first, dealing with sort of the fringers out there. Age of Rebellion is a much more Rebel versus Imperial type of situation. Then you have Force and Destiny, dealing specifically with Force users like Jedi in this era. All set in the era around a year, give or take, after the events of A New Hope, though of course you can fudge that and change that as gameplay provides. But they all do reference the Death Star having already been destroyed. This is a cool one. Before we even look inside, let's note here, it does come with some other items, as you can see spread out across the table here. You get a blank character sheet this time around, nice and in full color, and then you wind up with 5 pre-generated characters, kind of like they did with some of their previous products in terms of releasing PDFs you can download online. You have Lelsk, who's a Bothan. You have a droid, RA7D. We have Doleth, who is a Duros. We have a Gran named Gorbek Fask. You then have Darojin, a Sullustan, and you have Jackson, no, just one X, this is not the Bunny Rabbit Man, Jackson Brand, who is a human. So 5 pre-generated characters, plus a character sheet to let you generate your own. Notice, though, there is no sticker sheet for dice this time around like they did with the Edge of the Empire beta. That was released before the Dice app was released. Now that Edge of the Empire is out, the custom dice pack is out there, the Dice app is out there, so if you want to play with this, they suggest you go spend money on those. They do give a conversion chart, though, if you want to use regular dice for it, just like the main games tend to do. In this case, what we have is a paperback book this time around, very much like the beta for Edge of the Empire. And yes, I did just send one of those sheets flying off the table here. Pretty basic stuff. It's an introduction to the dice mechanics, introduction to the skills, introduction to the new classes you can play as. I mean, that's kind of cool. Different specializations you can use. Does a really good job of getting you into the game, but of course, so did the Edge of the Empire beta book, and so did the Edge of the Empire core rulebook. A lot of this stuff is repeated. Although, I would note that rather than obligation, Age of Rebellion uses a new mechanic called duty that works very similarly to obligation. Thought that was kind of a cool little trick there to it. This one runs just about 250 pages long, and the latter chunks of this book, if I can get to it, are made up of another of these quick little, it's hard to do one-handed here, another of these quick little adventures called Operation Shell Game, where you are a rebel team sent to steal an advanced new prototype vehicle from an Imperial installation. Cool little story, very small, kind of like Crates of Crates back in the Edge of the Empire beta book. But if Edge of the Empire is any indication, you may want to pick this up, because that adventure, Crates of Crates from the Edge of the Empire beta, did not show up again in the core rulebook. They switched it out for something new. So it's very possible that this may be the only place that you can get that particular adventure. If you're going to pick this up, it is again $30, just like Beyond the Rim is. Again, a lot of repeated content, not a lot of interior images. That's going to be in the core rulebook that presumably will be nice and hardback and expensive, as was the case with Edge of the Empire. You can find this now, at least as of the time I'm recording this, on the Fantasy Flight Games website, though of course supplies are going to be limited because it is just a beta. I got mine through miniaturemarket.com for about $20 plus shipping. So this about the same price and about the same discount at Miniature Market and elsewhere that you get for Beyond the Rim. If you want to pick it up, do it soon though. It's a very limited time beta, and once they're gone, they simply are gone as they await the hardback. Lots of folks trying to get the beta of Edge of the Empire now and having to pay quite a pretty price in order to get it. So get it now while you can. Age of Rebellion beta, definitely worth checking out, especially if you have not checked out Age of the Empire. This will introduce you to the mechanics of a very cool new RPG system. We'll check out more as it develops.